Hey, my guest is former WWE Diva. You may remember her from the other side of the tracks. Cherry. Cherry, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thank you for coming on today. I greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. This will be a good time.
So, what made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Oh, a fan as always, right? I always say my brother got me involved because he hogged the Saturday morning TV, and I was forced to watch WWE Superstars. So being that you're exposed and don't have another option, in the 80s, we didn't have another TV in the household. It was just kind of, I was forced to watch it, and it just got me. So as a young kid then, I never knew that that was something I could do in life. I was just a fan. So I just watched it over the many years and was addicted, as we all are, right? And just it evolved into something I never thought I would achieve. So as a fan.
So, what age did you decide that this was something you were going to pursue, and what were those steps you took to getting into professional wrestling?
I'd say my early 20s, actually. I was working at a cellular wholesaler, and I was watching wrestling and talking about it in the office. And one of my colleagues was like, "Oh, my uncle's a wrestling promoter." And I was like, "Well, what's that?" I didn't even know what that was because I was just a TV type of person. So she's like, "Well, you should talk to him." So she gave me his number and we chatted, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you actually do really know a lot about wrestling." Cause I watch it from back in the day, and it wasn't just what was on TV at that time. So we started chatting, and he's like, "You should come to one of my wrestling shows." So I did. And just as a fan and a friend of his. And I was like, wow, I'd never been. And I remember, independent wrestling has these posters they would put up, and it would be like Jimmy Snuka and then like all these undercard people. So I remember vaguely seeing them in towns, like when you'd be driving around, and I was like, okay, now it's starting to kind of like, I get it. So I went to his wrestling show, and he's like, "You should be my ring girl for my next show." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so cool." So just like taking the jackets back. So I just kind of started with that, and made friends, and what gets you where everywhere in life is networking. I made friends. I would go to different other wrestling shows just as a spectator, and realized then that that was something that was attainable. Like I didn't know there was a wrestling school. Like I didn't look into it. I was just such a fan, and like, yeah, sure, that would have been great. And I loved it and loved this, the whole entertainment factor and drama side of it. But not until I met that independent promoter and showed me what an independent show was, then people started to wise me up as to there's a wrestling school and this, so that's kind of where I started knowing that that was something that I could do.
What was your first initial thoughts of stepping into a ring?
Oh, so exciting. It's like, oh my God, like, how Miss Elizabeth would just get into the ring, and, just the spectacular part of it was just exciting to actually be in one. Obviously, it's a lot smaller on the independent circuit from like the main roster or TV stuff, but sorry, my dogs are making noise. But it was exciting to actually like be in a ring and see how it feels, and walk around and stuff like that. So, a lot smaller venues, your VW halls, high schools, and things like that. So really interesting side.
Was it harder than what you thought it would be initially?
The rest, when I started to take bumps and wrestle, yes, but not the valet side of it. I think it was more of making sure that I didn't impact in a bad way, like mess a spot up or something like that. But once I started to take bumps and started to learn how to wrestle, because yes, I was valeting and managing for a while, and I became friendly with Bobcat, and we would do shows together, and then we would interact in a valet way. Like she'd get involved, I'd get on her, and it was just kind of learning slowly the steps by another female in the business. So it was just slow and steady. And then when I kind of wanted to get a little bit more involved, then it became the idea, let's go check out this wrestling school so I could at least learn a little bit more properly. So it was just a slow evolution. So
when did you feel like you first started getting your name out there?
Well, back then there weren't that many girls, so luckily I felt very lucky. I mean, within the first year that I really kind of did it, I started getting my name out because there weren't a lot. I mean, Mickie James was really the girl that was in my area because she was in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So she really had her name already out there, and I don't think she started that much sooner than me, but fighting, sorry. But it's not like now. Like there's a lot of females. It's a lot more popular than it was back then. So it wasn't until I started to I teamed up with Julio Dinero a lot. So I met him on a show. We became friendly, and I started to manage him on a regular basis. So he would get bookings, I would get bookings, and he got a lot of bookings with Jerry Lawler at the time, who was doing a lot of stuff when the Cat was with him. So we would do a lot of shows together, and as soon as we started doing a lot with the Cat and Jerry Lawler, then the independent wrestling magazines started picking stuff up. So I was in a lucky position where I started where there weren't a ton of girls, and then made a lot of nice friends who had certain connections and, got bookings and such. So I'd say within the first year, I would get calls on my own just to get shows. And then I would get like in those fun little magazines and stuff like that. So, which I have all of those to this day. So that was the exciting part. So yeah, I mean, now it's so much harder because there's so many girls, which are great. But yeah, I'd say maybe a year where I started to get a little notary on the independent circuit per se.
And did that lead to you going to OVW? Were you doing like tryouts and stuff before that with WWE?
No, actually, I had a friend, Inferno Kid, who I managed as well. He was in my group of people that I typically hung out with on outside of wrestling. Like we would go and hang out and go to, the bars and stuff like that. So he was a good friend of mine, and he had been in on the independents for a long time and had a name for himself. And he had WWE like extra spots and tryouts and stuff like that. So he took the leap to go to Louisville, to do OVW. So he was already down there, and I was dating Judas Young at the time, his best friend, and our inner circle. So he had talked to us about going and just go to the camp. They were having a tryout training camp for OVW, and they were very clear it was OVW because obviously it was WWE developmental at the time, but it was very clear it was for OVW tryout. Well, my boyfriend, he had knee surgery and shoulder surgery, so he wasn't physically able to do anything. He hadn't been wrestling anyway. So I talked to Inferno, and he was very convincing. I said, you know what? So what? I'm going to send an application. I'm never going to get it. Well, I got picked to come down. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to go. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I do that all the time. I take wrestling bookings all the time. Big deal. I'm just going to go. It's going to be like a wrestling booking. So you pay the fee, and then you fly in, and they put you up in the Econo Lodge, and they transport you back and forth to OVW arena. And I was like, oh, I'll just do it. And I go, and I'm so nervous, but I end up being one of two girls that was in the camp. There was like 30, 40, 50 guys or something like that. A lot of guys and just one of two girls. Like, oh my God, I'm so nervous.
No pressure.
And yeah, and that I had been on the independents already, I knew a good portion of the people that were at the tryout training camp. Pat Buck was at the tryout training camp. So I had known him and Damian Adams and Mo Sexy. So it was comforting to know that I had people that I knew. It was nerve-wracking that I was one of two girls. So did the usual stuff. It was Rip Rogers, Danny Davis, Dr. Tom, the usual trainers. And then we just did, chain wrestling and matches and, mic work and just usual, see what you could do kind of stuff. So that was fun. And luckily, Dr. Tom had paired me up with Damian Adams, who was very instrumental in me learning wrestling on the independent level. Like he would go to the wrestling school with me, and he trains a lot now with a lot of the girls and guys. And he's so great at it and so kind and taught me a lot from the independent side of it. So, and I don't know if Dr. Tom did that specifically, but Damian and I had worked so many matches together. So he really made me look like a superstar. So I had, a great weekend, and then I just went back home to my regular job and called Danny Davis, and I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. And he just said, we really love what you did and we think you have a lot of potential, and, you are absolutely welcome back at any time. So that's kind of how I got to Louisville, was just on a whim and convincing of a very good friend to just do it. I'm a baby stepper, take one step at a time. I'll send the application. Okay. All right, well, I'll go. Okay. So it was like, had I thought of the bigger picture, and again, Danny was very clear. This is not WWE. Yes, it's a developmental, but they have their own class. They have their own schedule. They do their own thing. This is for OVW. So that's kind of how I got there.
How long after that did you decide that you were going to move to Louisville?
Pretty much within a few weeks after Danny had said that, I had to kind of figure out, because I was in a stable job. I was making good money. I was living with my boyfriend, and really was never went to college, like a way to college kind of a thing. And it was very out of my personality to just get up and go like that. But something in my gut was just telling me to go. So I had kind of mulled it over for like a week or two, and things in my life were just lining up where it was just kind of telling me. And I just said, I have to listen to my gut if I don't do this. So I think it was like April, May that the camp was, and I ended up moving down in August of 2005. And I left a secure job. I left my boyfriend. I went to a state very far away from anything I ever knew. Thankfully, Inferno Kid, Danny Jamundo, and his girlfriend had an apartment available across the hall from them. So that made me feel better that I had a good friend I've known for many years, like close enough. And I got a waitressing job, and I just took the biggest leap of faith ever. Because I'm a ducks in the row kind of girl. I need to plan out. And this was just very out of my sister always says she's so proud of me because it was something that not like me to do. And it was something, that really kind of built me as a human, as a person, to be able to take a chance on myself. So, so it wasn't too long before, and because I decided like a week or two later, and then I just needed to save up the money and come up with a plan. So but it took me a couple months to get there. It was the best thing I ever did. Listen to your gut.
How long were you at OVW before you received your developmental contract?
Oh my gosh. I'm very, very, very blessed that I was there for 4 months and got hired. That's not normal, and I knew that. So I'm very lucky, and I think all the things kind of came together because, like, when I got there, you go to the classes, you go to all of the shows and help them put up the ring. And, even though it's primarily the developmental talent doing the shows and the TVs, you offer what you can. They had an opportunity where their ring girl on OVW TV, I don't know what happened. She wasn't showing up. She couldn't do it anymore, whatever. I was like, I'll do it. Like, I jumped on it. I was like, please let me do it. So any opportunity I had, I tried to take. So I, was going to the shows initially, going to the house shows for OVW and TV shows, and just kind of kept my name out there and kept working hard, and then took the ring girl thing. And I had known Jimmy Jr. from the independents because he started the same month I did in the same wrestling school. So we already kind of knew each other. So him and Domino, Cliff Compton, had been working on the gimmick already because Cliff was in the developmental contracted class, what they called it. So they were already trying. Jimmy was signed, Cliff was not. So they were just trying to get on TV and Cliff a deal. So Jimmy and Cliff had come up with this, and then Cliff had wanted a girl, old school girl on roller skates, like, So from what I understand is that they were thinking about it, and Jimmy had recommended me because he knew my work ethic from the independents, which I'm so thankful for. So I'd already been at the TV shows. I'd already seen them. And they just Jimmy threw it out to me after a TV taping for OVW and said, hey, we're doing this thing. We're trying to, get Cliff signed and go on TV. And, this is the gimmick we're working on. We've been working because they have promo classes on the contracted class. So they were doing promos, creating this greaser gimmick. So it was just kind of on a whim, and they took me backstage after OVW TV was taped and the meeting, and showed me what they were working on. And I was like, yeah, I'll try it, and they didn't know what she looked like. They didn't know her name. They just wanted her on skates. And so it was kind of all up to me to come up with like what she looked like. So it was 4 months because it was Wednesday after TV. I saw that. The next day I went to find skates, all that, because the writers and talent relations were coming down that Tuesday to do their annual evaluation on where the developmental people were at, who they were going to bring up and all that stuff. So I had like a week to kind of get it together. So, long story short, so come that Monday night, we got together and just kind of, I showed them the outfit I put together. I showed them the skates, and we came up with my name that day. We were either going to do Sandy from Grease or Cherry from The Outsiders. And Cherry is just so wrestling-esque. So we did Cherry. And then Danny Davis and Al Snow said that I couldn't come because I wasn't contracted. So we had put all this together, and I had requested off from work and put our hearts and souls in it. And Jimmy's like, just be ready. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to beg and plead and just try and get you to come down. So I was kind of disappointed because my boyfriend was coming into town that week to visit. So I was like, oh, I'll just clean my apartment. I was like bummed out. I was like, already. Well, he calls me the morning of. He's like, get down here. And I was like, oh my God. So I rush down there and I walk in the door, and the first person I see is Rip Rogers, and he shoots me this like dagger look, and I'm like, Rip, you don't understand. I'm not late. Like, it's just like I couldn't, like Johnny Ace and Arn Anderson, everybody's there, and Rip sees me, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so disappointed, but he doesn't know the whole backstory. Like, this is not me. I'm not late. Like, so I end up rushing into the girls' locker room, throwing on my stuff. Now I had roller skated when I was a kid. Okay. So I was not a superstar roller skater. So I put on my skates and I go into the arena, and nobody knows that I'm going to be there. The only people that knew that we were putting me into this group was Ken Doane and Mickie James. They were dating at the time. And Ken Doane, because I was a cheerleader on the Independents, that was my gimmick. So when they were doing the Spirit Squad, like I had the megaphone, so they came over to my apartment and got me a megaphone. So then I chatted. I was like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, don't tell anybody. Like, what do you think? Because I respect Mickie so much. But anyway, so back for, I digress. So I go into the arena and I roll out, and everybody's face stopped, and they were just like, because I'm rolling across, because of course Deuce and Domino are on the way other end of Davis Arena. So I'm like, they're like this. What is that? And then I'm like yelling to Jimmy. I'm like, stop me. I can't stop, because I had roller skated and it's concrete floor. So anyway, so we go through the day, and they do matches, and we do, talks and stuff like that. And we were online to get in the ring and do a promo. And I just remember we were in the back of the line, and Johnny Ace went up to Cliff and was like, you guys have to go next. I guess it was a long day. So I think they were like cutting it short. So I was like, God, what is that? So then they went in the back in Danny's office to look at us on screen. So then we went in the ring, and we had been working on stuff. Again, this is a week in. So then they ended up cutting the day and, having everybody sit down. Johnny and everybody's addressing the class. And at the end, he goes, Jimmy, bring you and your crew in the office. And we were like, what? You're not asking. So we go in the office, and Johnny's just like, oh, we think this is great. And, you don't even wrestle. And, just like, I couldn't even remember what he said. He goes, we want to sign you to contracts. And I just didn't hear anything else. Like, I was like, whoa. Like, whatever he said, he was just thrilled with the whole gimmick. And then you don't want to say anything, right? Because you don't have a contract. You don't want to, but so we go out, and Jimmy's like, don't say anything. Like, nothing's like set in stone. Yes, he offered you contracts so we were trying to be very delicate with the situation. But Inferno's there, and he's like standing right behind Jimmy, and I'm like, I cannot tell Inferno. Like, so like I was like, and then he's just like we were so happy that we hugged, and we just like started crying. Like, who would have thought, like, in 4 months of me moving and leaving everything that I've ever known for a gut to be able to, in 4 months, get signed with this gimmick. So I'm so thankful and grateful for so many things, especially the boys for thinking of me. And then we were we were supposed to debut on Raw that next Monday. So they ended up flying us out. So my boyfriend came in Thursday. I wasn't even around. He stayed. Thank God Inferno, his best friend, lived across the hall because he hung out with him. So we went to Raw and ended up not getting debuted. We were supposed to, like, I think at the time Billy Graham had a book and we were supposed to like crash his interview or something like that. And they ended up not, which was a blessing in disguise because we really needed a marinade with Gimmick. So we stayed down for another year in OVW, which really was just a blessing in disguise. So that's kind of how I got signed. I was very, very blessed to be able to do it in 4 months. It's not rare. I mean, Beth was long, Nick was long, you know, like Santino took a long time too, Serena, you know, like it was that was mine in a nutshell. So very lucky.
How was it working with those trainers in OVW, people like Rip and Danny?
Oh my gosh, amazing. That's where I really started understanding wrestling. I mean, Rip's incredible. I mean, he's harsh, but he's Rip. But he teaches you the very, very basics, which you really, really need to know. So I learned so much from Rip. I learned amazing psychology from Al. Like, I don't think it was ever really explained to me the way Al did it. And Danny was always just such a shoulder to lean on for advice and input. So, I mean, I really learned my core. Yes, I learned a lot from Damien and doing my work on the independents. But I learned fundamentals with Damien and physical stuff. Whereas when I got there, I could build on it with Al and Rip. So, and you can see what kind of, you know, athletes that and entertainers they produce. So we had the best time in OVW.
Was there any moments that stood out more than others during your time in OVW?
Just the storyline that we had with Cody and Shawn. I mean, and I think a lot of people say it's like because you have such a hand in the creativeness at OVW, whereas when you're at the, you know, main roster, there's like bigger hands in the pot. You don't have as much creativeness. Like every single person in our group had an input in storylines. We sat down together with Al, we planned everything out. So being able to have input and use what everybody wanted to do at the same time, and do it our way, that was the most fun. And we ended up towards the end there doing more house shows than we did practice, because we're not going to practice and then go do house shows. I mean, we were doing house shows maybe once or twice a weekend, and they ended up being 5-6 days a week where we would get shows. The Davis Arena was getting booked for shows outside of our TV schedule. So it just spoke to a lot of talent that was there and the storylines and what we were doing. So, OVW was amazing time. Amazing time.
Did they give you a reason why it took so long after they called you? You were supposed to debut and then you didn't, then it took almost a year or a year?
No, I mean, it's just the big machine has plans, a lot more going on. So we didn't care. And we just reveled in the blessing that it was, because we really needed to get used to each other and come up with, you know, a finishing move, and how do we get the skate involved, and, you know, just mesh a little bit more in our characters, which was just a blessing. So it was never anything like, why didn't they bring us up? And we didn't care at that point. We were on for the ride, and we knew what we were going to do, and we just wanted to make it the best we could. So
how did it feel when you finally made it to the main roster?
Oh, it was incredible. It was so exciting. And we knew it was coming because they flew us into New York for Nassau Coliseum to do the dark match, and that's where they take like your Titantron video, like snippets for the video. So we knew it was coming, just kind of how they were treating us and putting us on house show loops and stuff like that before. So it was surreal. It's like, this is really happening. And then to see that they were bringing in cars for us to ride out in, I mean, I think my biggest fear was just the ramp and my skates, which thankfully they ended up getting rid of the ramp once I debuted, because they had brought us up and we were on a Raw show, and Raw had the huge ramp. And then I remember Johnny going, "Oh, how are you going to do that?" And I'm thinking, this is the first time you're thinking about that? We figured it out, and but it was way better the way we ended up getting to do it with the car, and then not having a ramp. So yeah, it was surreal. Like I just was out of body at that point, the moment to think like I'm really debuting on national television, doing something I never thought I could do in a gimmick I love,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So yeah, it was surreal. And then me and Shelly Martinez just went and partied that night to like celebrate. The boys were bummers. They like went to bed and were like, boo, like we need to celebrate this. So Shelly and I had a good time.
Was there any moments that you enjoyed more on your main roster run?
Like storylines or just in general?
Just for you personally, that you may have enjoyed more that stand out to you?
I just like the camaraderie of the girls. They were so kind to me, being able to be there, and I always, because I was a fan,
Mm-hmm.
always make sure that I stopped and signed for fans, however long that they needed. But I made some really good friends up there, and the girls were so kind to me. So that was being able to then, you know, because everybody says, oh, you're walking on eggshells, and just to realize like when
Mm-hmm.
those eggshells go away, we're all just family, you know, and to just say like, oh my gosh, these are my family. And then when like Raw and SmackDown would intermingle for whatever reason, then I could see Beth more often, and you know, it's like then you have your extended family. So it was that camaraderie that's really there. So
Was it nerve wracking when they split you guys up, like for you personally,
I'm sorry, was it nerve wracking for?
when you were on your own?
A little bit, because I lost my support system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was going through you know, it's hard to be in that spotlight against some of those girls. I mean, they're stunning. They're bikini models. They're, you know, like they're just, even though they're kind to me, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
was just self-aware. I'm a normal girl from a normal town, like loving this business. And when I was on my own, I lost my support system a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
it was nerve wracking, but um, Fit had a lot of faith in me, and he had shared with me a lot of faith that the office had in me. So I just clung to that, you know, because I was kind of that normal girl. And, you know, when we had the Diva competition, I remember Elijah Burke pulled me aside and he was like, how do you feel? And I go, listen, if the voting is legitimate, then these people want to see me. I'm happy with that. We knew Michelle was going to win. You know, she was the main star girl of the show. So I said, if these people want to see me, I'm happy with that. If it's fake voting and it's a rigged system by the office, that means they want to see me. So either way, it's a win-win for me. So that's really kind of how I viewed it. So, you know, having friends like that check in on you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I always remember that moment that we had.
Was it hard for them to know who they wanted Cherry to be after the split?
No, I think they were just going to organically let it happen. I don't think they didn't give me any insight as to me changing anything. They
Mm-hmm.
just let me do my thing. You know, the focus was Michelle. Um, but they, you know, me being the other baby face, they always need that other baby face. So it wasn't anything directed to be any different. I think eventually I always wanted Cherry to evolve, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted Deuce, Domino, and Cherry to show so much more,
Mm-hmm.
and then Cherry go off, and then I evolve a little bit more. So I think that's what I miss the most, or wanted to be able to share the most,
Mm-hmm.
is what we've done. We did so much more in OVW, and you know, they never even used me or the skate on SmackDown, which would have been fun, you know, hitting somebody with the skate. So, and we had moves that where they would pick me up and I would kick people with skates and stuff. So it was like there was so much more to show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
When your release came, was that something that you saw coming?
Um, I wasn't really surprised in a sense, because the economy was crashing. They were already letting go a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was upset. I knew that they were emptying house. But I was let go in the second round, whereas Domino was let go in the first round. Because they let two weeks of talent go, and then they started emptying out like headquarters
Mm-hmm.
when the economy crashed. So I look at it back now, and it was a blessing in disguise, because I just it's I was in a bad place mentally being up there, and I was struggling a little bit, but I mean, everything happens for a reason. So I wasn't I guess I wasn't surprised because they were already letting go a lot of people. It wasn't like a singled out Cherry's gone kind of a thing. It was like they were letting a lot of people go. But I was sad. I was very, very sad, and Victoria called and checked on me, and Natty and Beth flew me down to Florida, and we did like a girls' week, and really kind, dear friends. So, yeah.
Did you know that if you wanted to continue professional wrestling after your release?
I did for a little bit. And I had known that I could have had an open door to go back. I wasn't in the right state of mind to, because I had seen Mark Carano, who was head of part of talent relations at the time. And he had, we had always had a great relationship, and he said, you know my number, and if you ever want to come back, just reach out, but I had to kind of heal myself first before anything like that happened. And then by that time, I kind of got into a different space where it wasn't going to be something that I could do again in that capacity. But later when when I finally healed, I could have seen myself going back. At that time, I felt like it was just too late. So, but it's always in my heart. I mean, I love doing the signings and these kinds of things stuff. I'm blessed to have been able to do something I never thought I could do. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do. So to be a part of that and be a part of my own history it's exciting.
How has life been since WWE?
Good. I'm definitely very, very happy. I live in Florida. I have my own house. I have my own puppies, as you can hear them scrapping it up down here. But it's good. I mean, I'm in an amazing place. I'm very, very happy. There's nothing more that I could want. And to now be able to do these shows. And I just did a show for my one very good friend, Tommy Fierro for ISPW. Sorry. ISPW New Jersey. So I was able to go home. I did a show for him, and he actually used me in the show as like a special GM for a girls match. So that was really fun to be able to do, and a good turnout and stuff like that. So it was great to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, especially Tommy being in my circle of friends. He was my boyfriend's other best friend at the time, and we just did a lot of shows for his promotion and stuff. So it was returning nostalgia, memories back and catching up on a lot of things. So
where can people reach out to you at?
So mostly on Instagram at DDC Chick. I'm on Twitter at former Diva Cherry, so FMRDIVACHERRY. I'm actually holding an auction tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, April 13th, on the Whatnot app. So I'm selling a lot of like my Vengeance, the DVD, the pay-per-view that we were on. I've got some photos. I've got some ring-worn stuff. So I go on the Whatnot app, which is whatnot.com/user/DDC Chick. So I do auctions from time to time where people can interact and bid on items that I have. So those are really kind of the main. I don't have Facebook, even though there's Facebook out there of me. That's not me. So yes, that's where people can reach me.
Well, I greatly appreciate.
And here, the Podstars.
Well, I greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do. It's been an honor to be able to talk to you. I grew up in Southern Indiana, so OVW. I'm from Seymour, same as Rip, so OVW has always been in my DNA.
Kentucky.
Yep. Jim Cornette saying that is burned in my brain.
Yes. He left right when I got there, so I didn't get to see him. So.
Well, if there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
So much, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great day.